Are we live? Guess we are.
Sweet. Good to see you again. It's been a minute.
Is Jenny making introductions, or are we just diving right in?
I don't know.
Head on in, Frank.
All right. Well, thank you all so much for joining this afternoon. It is a special treat to share this with you all. This is a part of the At Home series, and today we're with Jeff Laub, the founder of Blind Barber, an alum who will tell you all about himself and Blind Barber in a few minutes. But just really quickly, let me introduce myself, and then we can get this really started. I'm Frank Romolowski. I'm the executive director of the NYU Entrepreneurial Institute, which is based under normal circumstances in the Leslie E. Lab on campus. Today I'm calling you from Maplewood, New Jersey, but broadly speaking, at the Entrepreneurial Institute, we run a whole series of programs, resources, and events to help our students and faculty start startups. So whether you need to learn how to spell entrepreneur or have an idea or invention, we offer a whole array of programs and resources to help our students and faculty start up. And a big part of what we do is to try to involve our alumni and the larger New York City and frankly national startup ecosystem in everything we do to both make it real, but also to help our students and faculty have a network of fans and supporters and people to help them take their business to the next level after they graduate or launch their business. And that's actually how I first got to know Jeff 3 years ago, maybe. We have even celebrated a party at one of our summer launchpad events at one of his venues that he'll tell you more about. If you're interested and curious and you can spell entrepreneur, you can learn more about what we do at entrepreneur.nyu.edu. But enough about me. Jeff, maybe can you tell us a little bit about your background, your time at NYU, and kind of what is Blind Barber and how it all began?
Absolutely. First, thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure to come back, and I had such a great experience at NYU. So it's always fun to re-engage and to see what I can contribute to the alumni as well as the students now. So I went to NYU. My background is I was born in South Jersey, and the second I turned 18 and could get out of there, I went straight to New York City. There was no other path for me other than New York City and NYU for that matter. I think even when I was applying to colleges, it was maybe one other school that I applied to. It was either NYU or bust. And to be truthful, I didn't know much about the school. It was mostly about New York and wanting to go to, the university that I had heard so much about. Got to NYU, ended up in Weinstein on a floor with all wrestlers. I myself am not a wrestler, but they ended up becoming a group of some of my best friends, as well as a couple other guys who are still my best friends today. We've been, which is really cool. It's been 18 years now that we've been pretty much attached to the hip and building our lives and professional careers alongside each other. I was first in, I don't even know if you guys have it anymore. I was in like the GSP program, the General Studies program. I think I was NYU was giving me a tryout before they really admitted me in. But eventually I did well enough to graduate into the CAS program and was a history major. The idea there was to graduate with a history degree, become a lawyer, buy the house, get the job, family, that kind of thing. And, spend my days on my front porch and legal briefs. That is not what happened. It's way different in the movies and television than it is when you're actually in the law world, which is great for some people, is not my cup of tea. But at the end of the day, just New York City, NYU pretty much provided me with everything I would need to one, discover myself and to have the freedom and confidence to kind of go about exploring new passions and new things, as well as prepared me to be a critical thinker and to kind of dive into the unknown with again, that confidence. So it was such an amazing time there, those 4 years. I deeply miss NYU. Now I'm living out in LA. I don't know if I miss New York City as much right now. The weather has made this entire experience pretty easy. I shouldn't say easy. Easy is a bad word. It's made it manageable. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of my time in New York and NYU, or specifically NYU. That's kind of where I was, or what I did there. And after that, graduated, went to. Well, when you graduate, you automatically do not get a job. That was the other thing that was a eye opener for me. I went in with the intention, it's like, oh, you do these 4 years, you get a degree, you get a job, everything works out smoothly, and life starts. It doesn't. It sometimes, and I ended up back on my mom's couch in Jersey watching General Hospital a lot. I know all of the characters. In fact, I'm having a baby boy, my second baby boy in October, and we're gonna name him Sonny.
Congrats.
Thank you. We're gonna name him Sonny, not because of the character in General Hospital, but there is one of my favorite characters in General Hospital now that's named Sonny Corinthos. But yeah, so I was doing that for a long time. It was rough, it was a real blow to the ego to have to go back home when I never thought I would be back in that realm again. But luckily, one of my best friends from NYU, my buddy Matt, he had stayed in New York and was pursuing the legal career as well, and ended up at a great law firm as a paralegal, Cravath, Swain and Moore. So I begged him to get me a job there, just to get me back to the city and to get me back on my path, my supposed path. And he did. He helped me immensely by getting me a job there, and I ended up working at Cravath, Swain and Moore as a banking corporate legal assistant. And it was, I would have taken anything. I remember it was right before Christmas of 2000. So whenever I graduated, so whatever that year is, 2007-ish, somewhere around there. Because I graduated in 2006. I think it said 2008, but that would make me, I'm a little older than that. But they interviewed me right before Christmas. I got the job, and they're like, when can you start? I was like, well, the 26th. So I got in my car, drove to New York City, moved in with my wrestler buddy, Vinny Russo, who's also now works at Blind Barber still, and is one of my best friends, was my best man at my wedding. And I moved into not only his apartment, but I moved into his room. And literally shared a bedroom with no door on it, and our feet could pretty much touch, and we both had girlfriends at the time. So that was an interesting experience coming back to New York, but very New York for a young and up and coming professional. And dove right into the law. Within 3 months of being a paralegal, I realized it is not for me. It was not going to be the path that I thought I was going to pursue. Although that didn't deter me from continuing, because the paycheck that you assume you're going to get from it was still a motivating factor when money was the most important driver for me, which it is not anymore. And so I spent like a year or two kind of just getting acclimated, doing the overtime, making the money. It was a great job for right out of college, and then in this incredible law firm. There's very few that are in the same realm as that. And I was lucky to be surrounded by such intelligent and really brilliant people that, again, had an impact on my next steps. But I took the LSATs a couple times. You have to study for those. So if anyone's thinking about that or has gone through it, you should study for those. I did not, and thought I could just wing it. Didn't do so hot. I think I took them 7 times because I was just adamant about getting in, and realized that it was just me. I was getting in my own way. I didn't want to go, but I felt I had to. So after I finally hit that moment of okay, this is not going to happen. What am I going to do? I thought back to a lot of the things I did growing up, and one of which was working in salons. My mom was a manager at salons in the tri-state area. When I went to NYU, my part-time job was working the front desk at this salon called Ted Gibson in the Flatiron District. It used to be there. And he was an incredible mentor for me. I was fortunate to watch him build his salon and his brand from the ground up. And I had no intentions of ever during those times, like going into that world, but I always liked it. I was familiar with it. It was fun to like be around all the stylists, the colorists, and, treating guests to a great experience and giving them their cappuccino, their wine, listening to their secrets about what, who they're cheating on or what parties they went to. We all don't get it twisted. Everyone can lie. Everyone tells their barber or their stylist every secret that they've ever had. And I was privy to them, which was a blast. But it was never on my radar. But when I hit this point in the legal field or the legal career where I was like, this isn't going to be for me, I was like, well, what else do I know? So salon world. So I ended up working 9 to 5 at the law firm, and then I would go to Aveda cosmetology school from 5 to 10, and that was going to be, I was going to become a stylist. I had all these connections to the salon world and pretty premier places at this point. So I figured it would be a great career. You have to like touching hair to be a stylist. So the program is broken up into 2 sections. And the first is all administrative, written, going through the health codes and all that stuff. I did fine on that. The second I had to blow dry someone's hair or wash someone's hair, I realized that I was not able to do that. I barely touch my own hair, let alone someone else's after like working out or something. So rock bottom number 2. That was number 2 where I hit bottom. I was like, well, I have no path now. Luckily, it came at a time when like a summer break was happening, and I had a conversation with my grandfather down at the Jersey Shore. We went once a year with my family, and he was a serial entrepreneur. And not that I ever again thought I was going to become one or start my own business, but he was always someone that knew how to figure it out. And I looked up to and thought he would have some good advice. So I asked him, I was like, what do you think about me becoming a hairstylist, or, give me I need a pep talk here, pop up. And he was like, oh, I think it's a great idea. He was like, Jeffrey, that's the place where I'd go get my hair cut, talk about the girls, play some cards, drink a beer, hang out with my buddies. And it was like a cartoon moment, like a little light bulb on top of my head. I was like, oh, that's what I liked about the salon. It wasn't like I appreciated the creativity and the trade that the service providers had, but me personally, what I was infatuated with was the communal aspect and the transformation that happened to guests and to myself when I would experience the service based on not only the service, but the atmosphere as well. And that didn't exist for my friends and I 10 years ago. Barbershops, if you got your hair cut, I don't know if anyone remembers this, but there was a term that people were calling you metrosexual and stuff like that. Like as if you got a haircut and took care of yourself, you were not just a person, you were this other label. And I felt that was really unfortunate and strange because these places were so cool and who doesn't like getting a haircut? So I wanted to create that space. So I dropped out of school. One of the questions I know we're going to ask is what resources should people go to? And I went to businessplans.com. That was the extent of my business training.
Unfortunately, the Entrepreneurial Institute didn't exist then.
No, it sure didn't. I was on my own. And I looked up businessplans.com and I downloaded one business plan for a salon, one business plan for a bar, because I had this idea of the beer in the barbershop, the way my grandfather kind of explained it. Used my buddies at the law firm to make sure there was no legal ramifications of doing it, which there weren't. And then I just started writing, and I cold called a bunch of people to find like who were in the industries of businesses that I liked. Most said no, that they couldn't help, but 2 did help me put some numbers together and put a plan together, and then just started chipping away at finding some people to help me make it become a reality. And it did, 10 years ago this month. It's a decade.
Well, it's interesting when you mentioned that you took the LSAT 7 times. That said to me was persistence.
No quitter, but I quit cosmetology school.
Which I often tell the teams that we work with, that's one of the defining traits of an entrepreneur.
I have it right here. There's nothing that substitutes hard work.
Yeah. so putting in the effort for it. So um, and it's interesting also that it runs in the family, that you had someone
Yeah,
who kind of role modeled it for you. But I love the kind of the insight that you saw, that sometimes it's sitting right in front of you, but it's not obvious that it was the experience.
yeah,
So tell people. I do want to go back to the kind of the founding story, but just I'm
sure.
not sure to everybody because I've had the pleasure of being there. But tell everybody kind of what Blind Barber started as,
Sure.
and then really what it has evolved to.
Yeah, so 10 years ago, it started as a barbershop in the front, two-chair barbershop situated directly across the street from Tompkins Square Park on 10th Street and Avenue B. It was right next door to like 9th Street Coffee, which still is, and Life Cafe was there, and Yoko. So it was cool. I mean, like, it was what you would dream of a neighborhood barbershop being situated between, right? It had your pizza shop, your barbershop, your coffee shop, and then Life Cafe, and then a park across the street with the entire community kind of getting together across from you. And then tucked behind it, behind like a secret sliding door, was a 120 person bar. And that was it. You know, we were cutting hair and throwing parties and making people dance and make out. And that was the business plan. And it was, you know, who doesn't love those things? So I think it caught on really quickly. The name Blind Barber came about as I was developing this plan and knew it was going to have this speakeasy aspect, which was super cool at the time. I still think it is. Everyone loves a hiding spot, but there was like a real movement at that time with PDT and I think it was called Little Door and Rain's Law Room. Like all of these places in New York were just popping up or had just popped up, and they were all these speakeasies. And I thought it was so cool. And we actually had a fully functioning barbershop, you know, that had the best barbers, at least, you know, in our opinion, some of the greatest talents in that industry servicing working those chairs. So it was legit. And I think that added to the mystique of the bar behind it, that it wasn't just this facade or gimmick. It was like, no, there's really this bar behind this real barbershop you gotta go through. But the name came when I knew it was a speakeasy. Looking up on Wikipedia, I typed in speakeasy, and in the first opening paragraph, it still says it today, is like speakeasies, also known as blind pigs or blind tigers. And I was like, oh, and it was this idea that I guess they turned a blind eye to what was going on in the back of these establishments
Right.
During Prohibition, and alliteration hit, and Blind Barber came into play, and it worked out. So yeah, that's how it started. And then from there, you know, we've always focused on community and our friendships. We built it for us first and foremost, and then invited everyone into our world. And I think that authenticity and that real effort to build genuine community started to bring people in, and with those people brought ideas in that we then built off of to expand to what we are now.
And so, what are you now? For those, I'm sure there's some folks on the phone who aren't.
Yeah. So now, after 10 years, we have grown into a full. I wish there was a better term for it, and maybe there is if someone has it. But we're a full lifestyle brand. So we have our F&B operations in the bar. We have our barber and salon services through the barbershops, and then we have a product line that we distribute internationally that was built off of the foundation of the spaces and the people that have come into it. And obviously the expertise of our barbers who work with these products day in and day out. And then obviously all the stuff that comes along with it. You know, we're doing pop-up events, we're producing our own content, we've strategized all of our advertising efforts. We do a lot. I'd say at this point, we do about like 85 to 90% of all of our stuff in-house. Very little of it's outsourced to like developers or stuff like that.
So aside from the East Village location, you have other locations, yeah? So
Started.
How many of those?
How many? It's been fluctuating, and it's a little touchy subject right now because technically they're not really open. But right now we have 2 in New York. So we have the East Village, and then we have a standalone barbershop in Times Square as part of our Moxie Hotel partnership.
Okay.
And then we just recently closed down. Well, we didn't close it. It wasn't our choice, but Barney's. We had a barbershop in Barney's, but they obviously folded. That was a really cool partnership, especially for the product line. And then we have 2 locations in Los Angeles, one in Culver City and one in Highland Park, which is where I am right now in our office. And then we have Chicago in the West Loop. We have our most recent one is in Center City, Philadelphia. And that was like my other partner, Matt Breen, our CEO. He is from Philly and I'm from South Jersey. So it was nice to bring that home. And then we have a barbershop and a bar concept, as well as an amenities program in the Arlo hotels, one of which is in Miami Beach. So we have a location there as well for, it's like a semi-permanent location that kind of fluctuates based on what the hotel's doing.
So if I could be so bold as to ask, how big is the kind of venue, the barber and bar side of the business relative to the product side of the business, if that's the way you think about it?
Yeah.
Whether it's employees or
me personally, I don't, with my title as executive, like as a creative director, I don't think of them separately, right? Because I'm trying to tell this cohesive narrative. But from a business perspective,
that makes sense.
Up until this year, it was 80% bar and maybe 20%, if not less, of the product. That's been a slow burn. This past year, those tables are turning, which has been a testament to our hard work and like you said, persistence. Not just because of COVID or anything, not because of them shutting down, just purely we secured national distribution with Target just recently, and then we just secured national distribution with Ulta as well, which is like a Sephora. Ulta is like a major beauty chain. One of the premier spots. And then obviously with Amazon and our own e-commerce and some other and international distribution. So we distributed Japan, Russia, Europe, Canada, Southeast Asia, and I think one other like territory. But with that plus the Target and the Ulta and Amazon and our own e-com, it's becoming like 60-40. And then on top of that, COVID, has dramatically impacted our location-based business.
So we have a bunch of questions from the audience. One of them is actually very germane to what we're just talking about. So I'm going to start with that one. So can you just talk a little bit about how the pandemic has impacted your business? I'm sure they were. I'm sure. I'm sure it's a sore subject, but are you reopening now? And have you actually seen the product part of the business actually grow, not just in relative proportion, but actually overall?
Yeah, I mean, luckily for us, we diversified our offerings at the onset. Blind Barber has always been about multiple offerings to make sure, and with one complete, one narrative that was always based off this idea of making sure people felt like the most confident versions of themselves. And so whether that's like a little drink, to loosen you up, to make and a safe environment for you to have fun and let loose a little bit to be yourself, or it's a haircut to bring you back to this idea of self, or a product to get you going on every day, we diversified. That diversification has truly helped us during this time when we're forced to shut down the locations. And like I said, the product, we just kept on with the momentum. And we also, because of the tools that we have at our disposal, like Instagram and TikTok, Twitter, Tumblr, all that stuff, we're able to maintain the conversation with our employees. And I'm a firm believer is like, we focused on building a brand before a business, which sometimes was to our detriment in terms of cash flow and like making, not always the best decisions from a financial standpoint, but we connected. And I think, so yes, going back, our locations have been shut down for months. And even with reopening, we're just allowed the barbershops in most of the cities at, whatever capacity it is. Chairs are spread out. We're doing appointments on the hour because we need time to clean and make sure that everything's sanitized. The bars, some of them, and I think Chicago's allowed to have outdoor seating, we're speakeasies, so we don't have outdoor seating. And even with the 60% occupancy for in-store dining or in-restaurant dining or bars, I was telling Jenny earlier, it's like, the people making these rules, I don't know if they're really thinking about the hospitality industry. It's like our margins are slim as is in that industry, and we rely on 100%, if not, like just constantly turning over tables and bars and stuff. So it's like, we're really trying to weigh those options. But what keeps us afloat is, from a business standpoint, is the product. And we did our due diligence, got our loans in place. So we're doing some funny, not funny things, but like we're being smart about the way that we're
creative things.
Correct. It's like we have free money to pay our employees. So whatever money we're making, let's stockpile it so that we can keep, dragging this out. But there has not been an ounce of confidence lost in us because of the brand that we created. And we see that through the conversations that we have on social, from, the customers talking with our barbers and the way that they have been supporting them through this time. The bartenders, same thing. So yeah, it's impacted us financially, of course. Took a pay cut, happens, but life doesn't just go this way, and I never expected it to. So, this is just one of the valleys that we're going to have to dig our way out of. And luckily for us, again, we've invested, I think, in the right things. One, by diversifying our offerings and having something to do during times of crisis like this, and making it audible, and also focusing on the brand.
So another question from the audience was, when you were getting started, how did you finance this? Because this, particularly starting with the venue side of the business, it's hard to kind of create a prototype and an MVP and all that kind of stuff. There's an element of you do need some capital to do this. So can you talk a little bit about that process and how it worked?
Sure. So I can tell this better from a personal standpoint as opposed to an industry like kind of template. Me personally, I had never raised money before at that time. So my goal was always to get the idea to come to life. And that meant sacrificing equity, at the beginning. And I traded that for expertise in the space. So I deliberately went after connections with people who I admired within the hospitality realm, knowing I could bring the barbershop stuff, but I also knew that in the construct of the business, it wasn't going to be the main revenue driver. You can do one haircut every half hour, and I could serve you 100 drinks in a half hour at $13 a pop. So I knew that was the more important thing from a financial.
I can't drink 100 anymore. I'm getting too old for that.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So I saw it, and I pitched, with an NDA in hand, some trust. I went out and found, tried to get connected to people I admired, and luckily was introduced to a guy who's my partner, Josh Boyd, who had a really great reputation and track record in this industry, who was looking to start a new concept. So a lot of the financing was done through him and his network and his track record. And then personally, I wanted to have some skin in the game. So I had a business plan, and I had a sales pitch, and I changed, it's going to sound so like hippie, which is a part of who I am, but I changed the way I was talking to people. And instead of saying like, what do you think about this idea? Do you think that'll work? Would you have any money? It was like, hey lawyer, because I went literally office to office around the law firm, because I was still there when I was building out the business. And I was like, hey, I'm doing this. I'm opening this. Do you want to be a part of it, or do you just want to sit in this office? And seriously, and a couple guys gave me a couple $1,000, and then I looked up. My dad works at Burlington stores, formerly Burlington Coat Factory.
Sure.
And his boss, the first guy who owned it, was named Monroe Milstein, who last time I met him, I might have been 3 at a company picnic or something. But I asked my dad, I read his story, and I sought out other entrepreneurs, and he was one of them. And he has this whole story about how his dad never thought his business would work, but he was going to go into this wholesale business and coats and whatnot. So I was like, yo, Dad, can you get me his number? And through his secretary, he got me his number, and I called Monroe Milstein, who had since sold the company. to Bain at the time. And I was like, hey, Monroe, you won't remember me, but I'm Jeff Laub's like son. And I have this business idea. I read you were an entrepreneur. I would really love $500,000. And he laughed. He said, send me the plan, hung up the phone. And he was like, and he told me, he's like, this, well, I told him the idea and I delivered, and I have a note from him that said he would never in a million years expected getting paid back. But he hung up the phone. Before hanging up the phone, he's like, this idea sounds stupid. And he hung up literally hung up the phone. I got a check for, I think it was either 5 or 10 grand from him, like in the mail. And he said, best of luck. And I think the whole idea was just ask. It's out there. Like the resources are there, whether it's through asking everyone and just keep following the breadcrumbs to someone who actually has the money or is looking for these opportunities to do something outside of either whether it's in their industry or something they have a little extra money and they'd like to be a part of, or just cold call people, ask them.
Sounds like that persistence thing again.
Yeah, just you gotta get after it. It's not going to come to you.
Well,
Closed mouths don't get fed, right?
That's great. So how much, if you don't mind my asking, how much did you end up raising just to get it started?
Well, me personally, I was able to, for my first time ever, raise, I think it was 30 grand, something like that, which was a massive, I had never seen $30,000 before at that time. I was 26 years old. The first concept, we were lucky, we took over a space that my partner had already owned. So I think we invested around 180. Typically, for a space like mine, which is about, I want to say 35 to 4,000 square feet. And the way we design it, we look to do it we've done it anywhere between 600 and 1.2, depending on the neighborhood, the building, and the design.
Wow. Another question. Where did it go? So you talked about you're starting this with one of your best friends.
All of them, all three of them.
All three of them. So the question is, how did you build a business with friends without destroying those friendships?
Good fences make good neighbors. I think if you're honest and upfront at the beginning, it should be with any relationship, but then when it comes to business, putting it on paper, and just everyone being an adult and knowing what everyone's entitled to, what responsibilities everyone has. You can always go back to that when emotions run high, and they definitely do. But at the end of the day, if you start off on the right foot and have the proper agreements and kind of responsibilities laid out on paper where people have signed off on them, that's where it is. And you have to keep, and then that's your starting point for whatever disagreement or argument arises.
I like that. I think that's terrific advice and something that we encourage teams to do. Maybe not on day one, but pretty soon.
Pretty soon thereafter. I mean, once you're fully committed to actually working together and not just palling around with some ideas, I think it's really important. It doesn't hurt to do that.
Another question, going back to the beginning here, is if money was your initial motivation, but it's not now, what is, and why is money not now your motivation?
Moments in time are the two most important things for me. I think that you can't trade them for anything, and having the flex, creating a business that's afforded me the opportunity to create moments and create, whether that's personal moments or moments with groups of people. My network's expanded exponentially, and now I have friends all over the world, which then afford me travel and different perspectives, different cultures, experiences, and then time. I don't like the idea of separating my work and life. My work has always been my life, and vice versa. And I want to make sure that I'm not just at an office from 9 to 5 and missing out on my 3 and soon to be newborn and time with my wife and my friends. And so those are the most important. And just, I think no matter what your goals are, if you need money, I know that, right? But I think sometimes when you're only chasing that, you lose sight of some of the other really fun things and important things while building out a business. You know, when you're constantly just chasing like top line, whatever your revenue goals are, or your VC money and stuff. And I don't know, I've just always had success in putting that as on the back burner and letting that just be a result of the things that I'm truly interested in, which are those things like moments and time right now.
So somewhat related to that, so when you talked earlier about, seeing that place and that experience of the barbershop where you could hang out, get a beer, all that, and you said you kind of created it for yourself, which is a common thing we see as amongst entrepreneurs, is scratching their own itch, so to speak.
Yeah.
But as you started to think about this as a business, did you have a conscious view of who your target customer beyond you and your friends? And then how did you how did you grow the business? How did you ramp it up?
Yeah. So yes, obviously the customer, the target customer changes, but again, I'm really bad at like using that like as a target, like as if I'm like attacking them with something, right? It's that's never the way I looked at it. When I started it out and I said,
Who are you trying to serve?
Right. When I built it for ourselves, the idea was in my mind, it's like, well, there's got to be enough of me to make this actually like financially beneficial. There's got to be enough people like me who would be interested in something like this. That was like the baseline. Then once we built that first round of fans and customers, you start to learn about them, and we took note. You know, we really utilize Yelp. We really utilize our reviews on our product to then tweak that initial customer that we had in mind, to make sure that we start to broaden the scope with our product offerings, with our service, to tweak the services a little bit, the approach, and use that feedback as a way to expand our customer base. And then, you asked, how do you grow it? I mean, and then you advertise, you got to put the shit out there somewhere. And we did that.
Was for the product side or both? Did you advertise for the bars and barbershops as well, or?
We use grassroots so specifically for the locations, I'd say it was more of a grassroots marketing. So the advertisements were through people hosting parties, because, I think when you do it that way, especially with a business that depended upon being discovered as a speakeasy, like you always want someone to find the bar so that it feels like theirs. So what we would do is we would hire promoters or get parties together for people to bring their customer base to us so that they could experience it for themselves, and it became their bar, their barbershop. On the product side, yeah, you do some of the ambassador stuff, you do Facebook ads, that kind of, whenever the moment fits. And then we went out, one of our biggest pushes was we went out and found a true ambassador and a partner in Bryce Harper, who's a baseball player for the Philadelphia Phillies, who also has probably the best hair in sports. He does. His hair is out of control. We found him and brought him on to utilize his network.
So how old was the venue business, the location business, when you launched the product, and how did you, aside from kind of, I'm assuming, displaying the product there, how did you leverage the two businesses across the brand and build and expand what the brand stood for?
Yeah, so the product line came about through a conversation with one of our guests who had traveled from Thailand, and he had hair down to his hips. And he said that the two places that he wanted to visit was the Empire State Building. I had this conversation with him in the barbershop. Empire State Building and Blind Barber to get a haircut. And we gave him a haircut. And it was a moment I was like, well, there must be more people who want to be a part of what we're building and sharing this experience that can't necessarily make it here. How do we give them a membership card, right? And so we were like, well, we're using other people's products. We were a group of creatives who didn't know how to build a barbershop or didn't know how to really build a bar other than my business partner. So what would be the difference in building a product line? So we went on the internet and said, how do you build pomade? How do you make some pomade? Found some instructionals, and then started asking around to people who had done it before and got that going. in order, so that was a year and a half in that it finally came to life after we had opened our second location out here in California. And our approach was, we weren't very traditional in that we knew we couldn't only be a product company because we had these other two businesses. So we really leveraged showcasing the lifestyle and tried to communicate what energy and what feeling was happening in our spaces, and then show the product, right? It was like, you'll feel like this. I mean, it's like the Coke commercials, right? Like, we wanted to show people enjoying their haircuts, finished perfect styles, and people dancing and being like, all of this is in a bottle. Take it and you're gonna feel like this at home in Idaho or Thailand for that matter. So we used the story and the real atmosphere that we were creating in our spaces as the main ingredient to the product. Because at the end of the day, I'll give everyone a secret, all pomade and shampoo is the fucking same. It's the same shit. You know, I mean, at the core, like, and I don't mean that like that it's all exactly the same. There are people who are true there are nuances based on your hair type and your skin type and your preference and hold, but like, there's at some point they become so minute that you could probably swap out, and people do, right? I'm sure you haven't used the same shampoo your entire life. You try new things and you go back and forth. And even if you fall in love with one, sometimes you get the itch to try something new anyway. And most of the times it does what it's supposed to do. It cleans your hair, keeps your hair in place, get it. That's like all product out there, right? Like a t-shirt is a t-shirt. And the way that I think brands, really try to connect is with giving their customers a glimpse into why they built their place, what the energy is, or their business, and what the energy is within their corporate culture, and how they hope you feel when you use it. And obviously making sure that it's a quality product. We work with the best chemists. We test all of our product through our barbers before they have a large hand in, they have a big hand in all of the formulation process because they use it every day. So basically we go to them, what do we need? What does it need to feel like? Go through all the testing, and before anything ever made, it goes through, a handful of our barbers before it gets out.
Another question. Are there any other entrepreneurs or startups or companies for that matter that you've really admired, learned from, or modeled Blind Barber on?
Knickerbocker Manufacturing out of New York, I think, is one that I've always admired. I think that they do an incredible job in terms of, one, building their culture. I was fortunate to live around the block from their factory in Bushwick when I was in New York, and I got to become really good friends with the owner and some of the guys there. And they also have a really, 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 they pay particular attention to design and not authenticity, but authenticity included, but quality. They love what they do, and it resonates through their product. And I think they've also, they've weathered some storms too, like any business, and seeing that consistency and that hard work has always resonated with me. And now they're doing awesome stuff. I think they, like, a couple months ago or 6 months ago, they did this awesome collaboration with the New York Times, which was incredible. That there's another clothing brand, two skate related brands. One is called Peels and another one is called Belief. I think, again, like, they have this knack of connecting to, like, it feels like people are running the business, as opposed to like some of the other larger ones where it's like, you don't necessarily, you can't imagine someone behind a brand. Whereas here you can kind of feel the work and the sweat, the tears, all of it through their product, and they're doing unique stuff, in my opinion. And then on the product line side, I've been really really interested in, or specifically within my industry, is, I think they're called Humankind or Human, and there's another one called Myro, but they do like eco-friendly packaging in the sense that you're doing refillables and replacements. And I think, easing into that and becoming, as an adult with the kids and what's happening in the world, like, at first it was just about the cool, and now it's shifting into like being more responsible as an adult and someone who has a platform, and those companies that are doing this sustainability, doing sustainable work and eco-friendly and have real mission and are trying to contribute back to society are the companies that I'm really, looking at and admiring these days.
Right. I think we are out of time. Jenny, is that correct? Are you still there?
I'm still here. Yeah, it's time to wrap up, unfortunately.
All right. Jeff, for our viewers here, where and how can they learn more about Blind Barber?
Best place is probably our Instagram, like most. So it's just at Blind Barber. Obviously blindbarber.com for, the more just straightforward product and location information. But the Instagram definitely tells a lot of the story in terms of what we've been up to, and really gives you an idea of who we are as a group of people behind this business.
Great. I just put both of those in the chat
Thank you.
for anyone who
And feel
wants
free,
to grab that.
you can also put my email. It's just jeff@blindbarber.com. I'm happy to chat and, keep this conversation going with anyone who's interested. I don't have all the answers. I'm figuring it out. I'm failing on a daily basis, but pretty quick at it. So,
as we like to say, we often learn more from failure than we do from success.
well, I am crushing it then.
I love that. All right. On that hysterical note, Jeff, thank you. It's great to see you again.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Hope to see you in person again one day soon. Maybe over some beer. By the way, the pizza at Blind Barber is also excellent. You think of it as
That's a good partnership. You can get that pizza right now, even without us open. It's next door to. It's called Gnocco. We have a partnership with them.
That was so good.
Oh, good.
And the cocktails are excellent as well.
Thank you. Thank you.
I've not done the haircut, but as you can see, I'm in need of one.
Anytime, man. We're open today. First day open.
Oh, well, I'll have to get into the city for that.
Yep.
But
yeah, and that's cool. And keep an age out. It is a decade. We're gonna have. Check it out. We have a fun project launching in the next couple weeks, probably like 3 to 4 weeks, where we're gonna be recapping our 10 years. So you'll really be able to get a glimpse into how this whole thing came to life if anyone's really interested. So keep an eye.
Great. Well, thank you for your generosity of time and insight. It was great talking to you, and I wish you the best of luck with your new family member. Good luck with that. Enjoy it.
Thank you. I will.
And stay well, and hope to see you again soon.
You guys too. Thank you so much. Have a great day. Bye, guys.
Bye.